So what kind of questions would you have for me today?
Okay, I tell you about my way into this work. You tell me about yours.
Well, let me just start. I've been doing this work for almost 8 years right now. So I've been a professional hypnotist for 8 years and had started out with a part-time practice. I'm in a full-time practice right now. And I really started out in a very traditional way. Like you said, I learned the most traditional way of bringing somebody into a focused state of awareness, which we call hypnosis, by simple relaxation techniques, and also then giving positive suggestions, doing visualizations of certain kinds. And I did that for probably a year. And then I really started noticing that the success rate that I had with my clients was really variable, meaning some people really responded to it very well. Other people didn't respond at all. And for some others, it would last for a while and then it would wear off. And I thought, well, something is missing. There's a piece missing in this puzzle. So I was looking around and I was sort of putting my word out into the universe. I need something better here. I want to have better success. I want to have more consistent results. And also I have to really admit, I was getting tired of doing all these relaxing inductions. I was about to fall asleep while I was doing them myself. So I got a book, or I got a gift book, which was written by Cal Banyan and Jerry Kine. It's called Hypnosis and Hypnotherapy, I think. And when I read that, I thought, well, yes, this is what I really wanted to do, because it's talked about regression therapy and inner child work. So I started off doing regression therapy by learning 5 paths and 7 paths self-hypnosis. And by doing that, I really had a big difference in not only my own work, because I went through the process myself, but also with my clients. I noticed an immediate effect right away. So I did that pretty constantly, working in that kind of framework for several years. And then I started noticing, well, there's something missing, because just doing regression therapy, and people have a lot of emotions when you do these things, when you try to get to the core of an issue. So I just noticed that sometimes the subconscious might not be able to change in a more positive way, or the beliefs and thoughts were not able to change if the emotions in place were still too strong. So I came across Matt's and Randy's Yahoo group. I started reading it and I thought, well, that really sounds like something that I wanted to try. So I did their boot camp, I think in 2008. And ever since, I've been using it very successfully. I love it. I have done the work on myself quite intensely, because I think that is really necessary for the own healing, which simply makes you a better healer, a better hypnotherapist, and helps you to understand what your clients are going through. And the neat thing about that technique is, once you release the feelings, it is almost automatic that the belief system can change, because often the belief systems that we have picked up from early childhood that form our present experience, that form who we are in the present, they are so deeply buried that most of the people that come to see me, they don't even know what the cause of their issue is. And because the emotions are simply too big. So when you start going backwards, you know how our thoughts and beliefs create our emotions. When the emotions get too big, the body gets too stressed, and all sort of things can happen. Addictive behavior, sickness, I mean, you know about all this. But when you go backwards and really peel the emotions away, all of a sudden the underlying core belief becomes very obvious. And once the client has that awareness, it almost changes on its own. So what I really like about this work is that it's so insight oriented, because each time I work with a client and they have an insight, I can literally see the light bulb going on above their head. It's like, oh wow, and then it changes, and the change comes from within themselves. It doesn't come from me telling them something, and that is what I want, because that's what simply direct suggestion does. You give your clients positive suggestions and they stick or they don't stick. But if the belief system is too contrary to what, or if the suggestion is too contrary to what their belief is, it simply won't stick. So we have to make the room first so that the new beliefs can come in and be really taken on as a new belief system. So I really like the fact of this being a very insight-oriented, growth-oriented process for the client, because I like for people to find their inner power and get the control back over their life so that they can help themselves, because otherwise they would be just coming constantly to me and I would talk to them and give them suggestions, and then when they wear off they come back in, and I simply don't want that. So that's what really got me into this work, and what I love about it.
Okay, you just talk about that it's in this kind of work we don't do suggestion what client should feel, how his life changed, but I just remember my yesterday session, and it was and it's sometimes happens situation like that person we do in some process going through events, through feelings, and sometimes person gets very relaxed. He just in kind of enjoyable state, and then I ask her to do something else. I said, now let's go back to this 10 minutes before this happens, for example, and what do you feel, and then again, and it's kind of, and I feel that that client this time doesn't want to do that, so I just kind of little bit force. But if he doesn't do that, he doesn't do results. If he doesn't do all the steps of the process, so we kind of in this work leading and forcing to do this, and it's actually not so much good forcing, but maybe.
Well, I know what you're talking about, but I never force anything upon my clients. I go with their own pace, and the way I'm doing that is starting off really preparing the client, not just when they come in for the first session, but also preparing them on the phone. So I usually have not just a 5-minute phone conversation when somebody calls me and is interested in my work. I really take the time to get a good idea about what the client comes in for, and I give them already a good explanation what the work is about and why we do work with feelings, and what the feelings that they have been carrying inside of them, how they affect their daily lives, how they have been keeping them back in the goals that they're reaching. So they already know, okay, when I come to Alexandra's office, we're not just going to be sitting there and relaxing. We're going to do some work. And I tell them that we are going to be working with emotions. So that's the first step. And then I tell them, when you come into my office for the first session, we're going to take a lot of time. I'm going to explain these things again, and I'm going to explain in detail what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be doing it. So I usually start off very, very on the surface by just having the client become comfortable. Sometimes you simply have to ask them, so how are you feeling about doing the process right now? If there is some feeling of nervousness involved or something like that, then I would work on that first. So they have a little success, so that they notice that even they have a feeling, it's not a bad thing to have this feeling, because they feel an instant, immediate relief. So it's almost like the subconscious mind has to gain the trust that whatever we're doing is in the best interest of the client, so that it lets the protective mechanism down, because that's what the subconscious mind does. It has a protective function so that we don't get hurt, so we don't have to feel pain over and over again. And all of a sudden we're there, we want to do the work, we want to get into the subconscious mind, we want them to have to feel these emotions, but the subconscious mind says, no, 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 because each time when they had been feeling this feeling before, they did something to distract themselves or whatever it was, because they didn't want to feel the feeling. Now all of a sudden we're there and we want them to feel the feeling. So we need to make really, really safe. Now, for some clients, I have to sometimes take a session or two until they really start opening up. And that's why you have to be very, very individual with each client. Sometimes I start off a session and I say, okay, we're going to stay a little bit on the surface. You're going to get an experience of how it feels. I'm going to make sure that you're going to get some relief. Some clients are so ready, they dive right in. Others are really nervous about going to this place. So you have to do whatever it takes in order to slowly get them to where they want to be. Because once they start that there's little releases, they are much more willing to open up, or the subconscious mind is much more willing to work with us, because that's what we want. We don't want to scare the subconscious mind and close up even more. We want the subconscious mind to work with us so it can bring things from the subconscious to the conscious mind, so that the conscious mind can then do something with it.
Okay, and do you do validation of little successes?
Yes, I always would do that. I always make the client, even during the session, because clients often are not, or many people are not that aware of their bodies. It's like living above the headline. So they're not, a lot of people are even having challenges feeling their feelings. So that's what I even do in the first session. I have them practice. I do like very simple exercises. I have them make statements. And I say, okay, when you say that, close your eyes. How does this feel in your body? And I have them practice for a while so that they get a sense of how the thoughts that they are thinking are creating a physical response in their body. So I say, when we're in the session, I'm going to point out to you a lot of things that I'm seeing. And I'm asking you then, does that feel true or does it feel false? And then they would give me a feedback. And sometimes they would say, and I said, did you just notice how you took a little deeper breath? And they say, no, I didn't. So you begin pointing these things out. As you begin pointing these things out, you're doing one more thing for the client, because you are starting to create more awareness in the client about what's going on in their body in relation to what's going on in their mind. So I do a lot of little validations along the way, because I think as human beings, we have the tendency to be at one point in our lives, which we're often not satisfied with, because that's why our clients come in, right? They have some kind of challenge in their life. They haven't been able to overcome it, and they know exactly where they want to be. But sometimes we simply cannot go from one end of the stick to the other end of the stick in one big step. Now, I personally think that the tendency of the human mind is to focus on the negative. If something positive happens and something negative happens right after, the human mind often focuses on the negative. So if you have a session, and we know that most of our work is not just done within one session, and you have a little success, you have to point that out. You have to validate it. You have to reinforce that and really tell the client, your big success might come in big steps, it might come in little steps, but the whole success will come as a result of little or bigger successes along the way. So I try to point out those little things, because otherwise they might not even notice that they're having a relief in the session. Because, you've worked with clients and you know that sometimes they have a big feeling, you work on the feeling, you help them to release the feeling. And then you ask them, okay, how are you feeling right now? And then they would come up with right away with a different feeling. Let's say they started out with a fearful feeling. You release the feeling and then all of a sudden they're angry. And yes, the fear had covered up the anger, so you want to work with that too. But sometimes you have to be a little slower. You have to almost say, okay, let's keep a focus on that feeling. We're not going to let go of that feeling, but we're going to go back to that other feeling, so that they notice that the fear has changed, or how has it changed, so that they know an instant relief, because otherwise they're just going from one negative feeling to the next one, and then it's like, well, why am I even doing this? So you have to sometimes even slow the client down in order for them to notice the little relief, or the relief that has been happening in the body, and how that then in retrospect is affecting their thinking.
Okay, and how this regression hypnotherapy can help people? In what problems? In which situation?
I actually have to say that I do not Um, I wouldn't know out of my head of anything that this work cannot help with, because I strongly believe that we all we all are where we are as as a result or what we have experienced in life, and we all have experienced life. For some people it was traumatic, for others it wasn't so traumatic, and you do not have to have traumatic events in your life in order to be affected by something. And if we do not look at those things that might have been affecting us, then it will only be leading to a temporary result. And it could be as simple as, let's say somebody has had as a child an experience in school where the teacher was scolding them when they did a presentation. So they started having a fear. And then over time, this fear gets reinforced by various events. So they create even though it might have been not very traumatic from an adult's point of view, for that child it might have been very stressful. So they might have, as an adult, a fear of speaking in public. And even though the event that caused it in the past wasn't very traumatic, but it's still there, it's still affecting them. So I think going back to the core of an issue is very, very important, because it's like it's cleaning out the vessel, it's making room. And even though we all have experienced life, it doesn't mean that whatever happened to us in our lives does have to affect us for the rest of our life. I think everybody has the ability, the right to live to their fullest potential, and we can do that. So I see clients for many, many different issues. My preference, to be honest, is working with emotional issues or with anxieties, because that's what actually got me into hypnosis myself. But I do work with weight loss, I work with stop smoking, I work with relationship issues, I work with all sorts of fears, I work with depression, I work with athletes, I've worked with musicians and writers. So I don't see any area where this cannot be of benefit. I do have a very big toolbox, so I combine the regression therapy with other tools that I know. And occasionally I would have somebody come in who simply needs to, whatever, they go to a surgery and they just wanted to be able to go into the surgery relaxed and calm. And then sometimes I would simply do a relaxing session. So I really make my practice very open with respect to how I approach the client, so that each client gets whatever they need, whatever is best for them.
You said you're working with athletes, and there is now show going on some TV channel, Necessary Roughness. Have you seen that? It's about the woman who is actually a psychotherapist, but she's doing kind of hypnotherapy too. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen it, but it's funny that you say that, because a friend of mine just recommended that to me, and I was going to check it out and see what it's about. So I've heard about it, but I have not watched it myself.
But it's not much hypnotherapy over there. Just
I think it's more general therapy, correct?
yeah, and just relations with people, and just like that. Okay, so you're working with any issues, so it's like kind of magic. So every person who is not completely happy, who has had a little tiny slightest piece of unhappiness on something quite not right, it's so there is a reason in the past that something like that we are not at total peace, at not total happiness.
Right. Well, I think, it would be great if everybody could be at total peace and total happiness all the time, but I think there has to be a balance, right? We don't want to be on one side of the end, like being in a constant state of fear and desperation all the time, but it's a complete illusion that somebody can be happy all the time, like exhilarated or something. So my goal with myself and with my clients is to find a balance. I would call it maybe contentment, because from that point of contentment or that balance place, then you can fearlessly explore all the other feelings that you're having. Then you can be handling your negative emotions better and use them really as the tools they are meant to be. And you can be at the same time experience happiness or joy in a different way, because a lot of people that have numbed out their feelings because they have been so uncomfortable. They are not even able to feel real happiness because they are so numb in a certain way that they have numbed out the pain, but it doesn't allow them at the same time to feel the real happiness or the real joy. So it's sort of like this kind of flat blind. When you come to a balance point and you're not afraid of your feelings anymore, but you see them as something, as a response to what's going on in their lives, and that they can do something about it, it's really freeing. It's really liberating. And that's also a big part of my practice is educational. It's like explaining to my clients, why do they even have feelings? How do these feelings get created? They are normal to be there. If something really unfair happens to you, you should be feeling angry. It doesn't mean that you have to feel angry for the rest of your life, but it's not, the feeling itself is good, but a feeling is just a feeling. It's just a piece of information. A piece of information your body is giving you to, as a relation or as a marker to seeing where are you in your life? Are you in harmony with your values? What's going on? Or is there something that needs to have some attention? And once clients understand that and they lose the fear of their feelings, it's almost like it weakens the feelings right away, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to feel this way. This is a normal feeling, because I think the fear of those negative feelings is what really makes those feelings even stronger, because people do anything they can in order to avoid them.
Mm-hmm. What is real happiness, in your opinion?
For me, real happiness is, I would define it as being balanced, being content, being at a peaceful state in which, as I said, you can explore all facets of life and all facets of your emotions, just as they come along.
So the main thing is explore every emotions as they come along?
Yeah.
Can a person be angry and at the same time happy because he is exploring this anger?
Well, I think maybe let me use a different term then. I think happiness is a form of freedom. Freedom to be able to do something, to be the person who you want to be and not be a victim of what is going on around you, but knowing that you are in control over your life, and whatever you are feeling is what you're feeling, and you can deal with them. I think that's what happiness is.
Okay. Let's imagine situation. Just somebody calls you to make a point, to ask about your services, or he has some things he wants to do better, or some request, and you explain that you work with emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody can be helped, or is anybody can be helped, and what's is going after that, after you explain those emotions?
I'm not clear about the question. Could you ask that again? So you want to know what happens after I talk to them about what's going to happen in the session?
Actually, it's two questions appears.
Okay.
First, I wanted to ask you questions. How usually you talk after you explain about feelings, and how you prepare client to the sessions. And actually, I was going after ask how about typical session goals. And then second question came to my mind, is anybody can be helped with this technique? And you can answer whatever you want.
Okay, so let's start with the first one, which is what do I do, or what would a typical session like? So I usually, as I said, I start off on the phone. Oftentimes people already have an emotion while they're on the phone. So you can do a very simple releasing with them by having them focus inside their body. How do you feel when you are when you're talking to me about this? And you can give them already a little relief on the phone, which is great, because then they have like an instant validation that, wow, even though I'm feeling this crappy, I don't have to, there's something that can be done about that. So a typical session so then they decide whether they want to come in or not. And then the typical session really starts out with a good assessment of what the client really wants. I do a little bit look at the history. I ask them what, in their opinion, is contributing to the really make sure what it is that they want out of the sessions. It's like, so if you were to be successful with that, how would you feel at the end of the sessions with me? So we're setting a goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm explaining to them again about the difference between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, and how we have to have them work in harmony with each other, and how the subconscious mind is our feeling mind, and how it expresses itself in memories and pictures and feelings, and how the conscious mind is the rational mind that houses our willpower, and what the difference is. And I explain to them how we're going to be doing hypnosis, and I give them some examples. I would explain to them how the releasing is be done in different forms, and then I would start the session. So the client would talk about their issue on the phone already. They would talk about it at the beginning of the session, and then when they close their eyes and go more inwards, they would talk about it again. So it really gets them already into the issue much more deeply. And then I would sometimes I'll start out with some statements that are related to their issue, because for me it's important to know where the subconscious mind is with respect to a particular issue. And I give you an example. Let's say sometimes, let's say someone comes in for stop smoking, and their conscious mind really, or in their conscious mind, they have made the decision, I really need to stop smoking for such and such reason, I want to do it. But they haven't been successful. So there's a reason why they haven't been successful. But even before I go to that place why they haven't been successful, I want to do a little test. Do a little test and see how the subconscious mind feels about it. Because sometimes they don't believe they can do it, or sometimes they're afraid. So you could make like little statements as like, when I think about quitting smoking, it makes me feel. And they might say, wow, I'm afraid of doing that, right? So it's not just what has been causing them to start smoking, but they're also afraid of quitting. So as long as that fear is in place, I believe that it's really hard to make the change. So that's the first thing I would even start working out with. So it's just probing around a little bit. Okay, where are they, even though they consciously might want this, where are they on the inside with respect to that topic? Are they ready? Or sometimes we have to get them ready.
So you can regress this feeling, afraid of being quit smoking, you can release this feeling.
Yeah, I would release that feeling probably first, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, yeah, now I feel comfortable to quit smoking, and then we would go to the real issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so the second part of your question was if anybody could be helped with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think yes, unless a person might have a real, how can I say, maybe a mental restriction in a way that they cannot really follow what's going on. But I think everybody can be helped. However, everybody can only be helped as much as they want to be helped, as much as they are open to the work, because I'm just a facilitator. I have the tools, I know what works, I know how to guide the clients through the work, I know what needs to be done at a certain point, but I can only do as much as the client, the subconscious mind, the conscious mind of the client allows it.
Clients needs to go to sessions. Clients needs to do to do the process.
Yes, they need to do their own inner process, but I'm here to support them. I'm here to make sure that they're safe. I'm here to guide them to where they need to go. So I'm the detective, so to speak. I have to set the guidelines in a non-leading way, so that their subconscious mind can really lead them to those places that are ready for healing. So yes, client needs to come in with a willingness to do their own inner work by using the tools and the help that I'm offering them.
Mm-hmm. I remember somebody some times ago said that in this work I concentrate on negative things, and why don't just concentrate on positive things, how to make the us stronger, how to help us with power. It's kind of back to the direct suggestion to regression.
Right. Well, that's a very good question, because I've been breeding or struggling over this thought for a very, very long time. And honest to God, if I had come up with the solution that I do not have to get my clients sometimes express the negative feelings and we could just do everything with the positive feelings, I would do it. Because why would you on purpose do that if you knew that the happy feelings would be sufficient? What I've been noticing is that when there is a buildup of negative feelings inside of us, there is no room for something positive to come in or to stay constantly. And it is like you want to have a glass of water, but you have a glass of milk in front of you. If you put just one drop of water into the milk, you end up with dilute milk, but not with water. So you have to pour out the milk, clean the glass, and then put the water in. And I think it's the same with the feelings. So the more we can release the negative feelings, the more naturally the positive feelings do come in. And then they can stick, they can be natural. It's not something that I suggest to the client. It's not something that the client just feels for a temporary moment, but there is a shift happening inside of them that takes them from a more negative state of mind or feeling into a more natural positive way, which means then they naturally start to see maybe themselves, the world around them, with more positive eyes, and that's I think where the more happiness comes in naturally. But I want to say that sometimes when you work with a client and you say, okay, follow this feeling back, and you see where it brings you. I've had people that went to a very happy place. And in the beginning, I thought, oh, wow, what are they doing? They're supposed to follow that feeling back so we can release it. But I have come to the understanding by having it with certain clients that is not always the case, that they want to avoid a negative feeling. Sometimes I think the subconscious mind brings up a happy event where they feel really good, because it's almost the subconscious mind reminding them, hey, listen, this is what your real feeling is. This is your true inner core. This is your true inner self. You have it inside of you. It's almost like a reinforcement, so that the client knows, oh yeah, I have been feeling this way. I have it inside of me, which then can be a bigger motivation to do the work. So I sometimes would feed off that positive emotion and reinforce it and make that bigger. So they have that inner that reminder, yes, it's not all negative, it's not all been negative, because there's a lot of positive things that happen in our lives, but we keep forgetting about them when the negativity is so big. So I would work, my goal is to release negative feelings, but I do work with the happy and positive feelings as well, and sometimes in a very explicit way.
So if client regress in situation with happy moments, so you release happy feelings.
I would, or sometimes I wouldn't say sometimes releasing. If the feeling is really, really strong, I worked with a client a few days ago, and that client had to release, and all of a sudden she felt overwhelmed. And it's like, okay, does this feeling of overwhelmed, is that a good feeling or a bad feeling? And she said, no, it's great, but she was so overwhelmed she couldn't even, I could see. So we had to work with that feeling and just release it, so that she could feel happy and content, and it wouldn't be so overwhelming, because she hadn't been feeling good in a long time. So there is a difference between, yes, sometimes to have to release those, and you have to explain to the client, by releasing those feelings, you don't make them go away, because they really want to hold on to them. It's just making sure that there is a balance. But sometimes I would reinforce a positive feeling. And you can do this in the same way then you are releasing a negative feeling, because who says that you can only, like we're doing the tapping techniques, who says that you can only release the negative feelings and not reinforce a positive feeling by tapping on the same spots, or tapping on the spot where the feeling is actually being felt?
Tapping on the spot where, so you do tapping physically on that spot. So if somebody has feelings in, I don't know, in a leg, so you tap on a leg, and
I'm very forgiving with respect to the technique. There is a routine that I use, but I always tell my clients, if I say something to you, if I say, okay, rub and tap there, if you have a better place on your body to rub or tap, or if you need to move around, if you need to get up in the session and shake your legs, jump up and down, I have them do whatever they need, because their body needs how to shift the feeling, how to release the feelings. So yeah, sometimes I say, see if there's a spot where you would like to tap on right now, and they often come up with something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, so back to the situation when client returns to happy feelings. So you make them explore this feeling. You maybe ask what's going on next after that, or and how do you go back to the bad situation, bad event? So you client may fulfill him with everything good in this situation, and this good can become even more their power, and then they can go back to the uh, previous event, and you just ask how they feel now there, kind of like that.
So you mean how I make the shift back to the feeling that we were releasing?
No. Okay. The purpose of regressing back to the situation is just to find cause of problem and change this problem, release something problem, make to learn something which person didn't learn before, and get this power in, and then feel whole life with this power, and then go back, and maybe the situation which we were before change itself, or we may find something else. And
yes. So what is the concrete question that you're having with respect to that?
Okay, we get initially, for example, I had very big fear. Now, for example, I'm fear something. You do focus on this feeling really, and go back to the time situation, which is everything directed to this feeling.
Right.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm going my birthday, for example, 12 years, I'm happy like crazy. Oh, for example, you reinforce this feeling, and then what?
Well, it doesn't, this is very individual, because you have to, when you do this work for a while, you sort of get a sense when a client tries to avoid a negative feeling, or when you have the feeling that this feeling in that situation simply needs to come up right now because it reinforces what the client is really capable of feeling on the inside. So you have to be a little bit, I use a lot of my intuition, and I'm there with a client. So after working with so many clients, you get a feeling, especially when you start to get to know the client, when they simply want to avoid a situation by going to something happy, or if the subconscious mind really brings something up that can be reinforced. So if I have the feeling that the subconscious mind is trying to not open up, then you have to go through back doors, or sometimes I have to go a step back and then say, remember that feeling, bring up that feeling again. So it's not do A, B, C. It has to be really individual. So you have to be on the spot and sort of intuitively know what the next step is, and making the decision between, okay, we need to go back to that feeling right now, or this is an important part that is helping in the healing process. So I cannot answer this question with, okay, do this or do that. It really depends on the situation.
Yes, I know, I understand. It depends on the situation, but kind of maybe guidelines, possible choices, possible things, and
sometimes underneath a happy feeling can also be a negative feeling. So sometimes it has helped by releasing the happy feeling, that all of a sudden something else comes up. And I know that Matt is reinforcing this very much about releasing happy feelings, and I agree with him on that, because I have had situations where you think, oh, the client is happy, everything is fine, you start releasing the positive feeling, and then all of a sudden underneath there's something completely different. So it can be masking, and you simply have to, so that is one possibility. You simply have to be open and see what happens. Start releasing the happy feeling, start tapping on the happy feeling, see what comes up, and then you go from there. And if you really feel stuck with something, you can always go back to the to where you started off. I mean, that's always, because the clients, even though you release the feeling, simply going back, they will remember what the feeling feels like. It doesn't mean that it has to come back, but they remember how the feeling feels because they have been feeling this for a long, long time. So it's not, you can always go, step back, or one step back, and then take it from there.
Okay. And one of contradiction I started to notice, for example, client has negative feeling. We may ask, where is it located in the body? For example, here, do you want to release, or do you want to hold or release this feeling? And for example, client, because he doesn't like this feeling, he says, I want to release it.
Yes.
And release means also for him in this moment to get rid from this feeling. But this feeling is very important for client right now, because something in life happens, something in the way life happens, this feeling became. And if just this feeling does not exist, so he doesn't learn anything, because he says, for example, he doesn't want, he wants to release this feeling because he wants to get rid from it. Once I was a client myself, and during a session there was situation, for example, I feel heaviness, kind of heaviness in my head feeling, and hypnotherapist asked me to release it, and I felt when I was releasing that I'm doing something wrong, because this kind of, I felt like it may be very precious, because feeling this feeling, I can get more deeper in this feeling to find out how this happens, or to get, and I didn't understand how this happens, but I felt like something, it can give me great opportunities, great of meaning of life, kind of about myself, about how we can just, but if to release, do something. So I just was like, it's precious stone feeling, because it was a little bit unpleasant, but I felt like I need to go, kind of not releasing, but kind of actually kind of, so and I think in the big from the bigger picture, every feeling we can even treasure them more and enjoy them more and find out about them more. So it's kind of when we face them, when we treasure them and get power from them, and kind of releasing it makes it giving them away. So kind of did you see a little contradiction?
Well, I see the contradiction, but why would you want to hold on to a negative feeling? I mean, I sometimes have that happen in clients, that I do ask, do you want to let go of this feeling, or do you want to hold on to it? For the most part, people want to let go of it, but sometimes they say, I don't know. And it's like, then you have to explore, why do they not want to let go of it? Because sometimes this feeling has become so part of their life that they don't even know what their life would look like without having that feeling, because they simply have experienced it for such a long time. So it is a big change for them to let it go. It's almost like letting go of a good friend, even if it was not a good friend, but at least it was a friend. So it's like finding out why do they not want to let go of it, and helping them to sometimes overcome the fear that they have. Oh my God, what's going to happen when I do let this feeling go? Because I think that's a very natural response of a human being, to sometimes be a little scared about the unknown, what's going to happen. And that can happen by helping them to get little successes. If they release a little bit, oh, I feel a little bit better, that feels good, I'm not going to die, I'm not going to not exist anymore, because that feeling starts to release. So I think it's really important to understand if a client doesn't want to let go of the feeling, why they don't want to let go of it. Is it really because it helps them to get insight, or is it because they are afraid of what's there if that feeling isn't there anymore?
Okay. What question would you like to ask yourself?
Well, there's always a lot of questions that I would like to ask myself, but I think how I would like to end the interview is really expressing my gratitude for the kind of work that I'm able to do, the kind of work that I am doing. I tremendously enjoy this work. I love working with people. I love seeing how this kind of work can make such an incredible change in somebody in such a short period of time. And I'm a strong believer in everybody on this earth planet deserves to be content, happy, whatever happiness means to them, and live more up to their full potential, tapping into their powers without letting themselves be restricted by something that has been affecting them for their whole lives. People can be more successful. They can be in their work, in their relationships, whatever it is. And I'm happy to be the facilitator, the coach, and see the results of that. So I thoroughly really enjoy what I'm doing, and couldn't think of anything better that I wanted to do.
Okay, thank you very much. And I hope we may